All right. So I'm Lacey, and this is for my ethnography uh, presentation. So I'm going to start with my interview, more about my interviewee. It was a friend that I knew in my previous school. She's 24 years old. She's Hispanic, and she was recently diagnosed with ADHD. She said that she's struggled with it her whole life, basically, though. She was born in California and went to school there until she was in third grade, and that's when she moved to Arizona to live with her grandparents. She's not a member of the church. She went to a school that was like super LDS populated, um, and she said that she always felt out of place. People were usually nice, but said a lot of slightly racist things. She said that in California, the school that she was in was mostly other Hispanic people. But then she was like, she remembers coming to school in Arizona where mostly everybody was white, and girls would ask her why she had a mustache and why she had arm hair and leg hair. Um, when she was in high school, she had a lot of friends that were white, um, and they would always, say, make fun of her race, but then be like, oh, well, we're just joking, we're just friends. She said it never really felt right with her. Um, she didn't like it, but she didn't never say anything either. She also never felt like teachers thought much of her or her potential. She thinks that's partially to do with her ADHD. She had huge struggles focusing in school. Um, she had a few teachers um, who basically just did not expect much of her, and one of them even said that, she was never going to make it in life. She was too lazy. She talked to me about three things that she wished that um, teachers uh, did and what she noticed, and one of them was openness. She recalled teachers avoiding certain topics that made them uncomfortable, especially in like history class when it came to like race, or if there was a certain sorry, my oven just went off. If there was a certain uh, topic that was going on in the world, current event, the teachers just kind of didn't want to talk about it, and it made her feel super unimportant. Like what was happening to her in her life was not something that was worth talking about. She told me that she only ever felt like she could be herself with a certain Hispanic Spanish teacher. She said she always felt like with her white teachers that um, she felt like she was in a competition with everybody, and it doesn't mean necessarily that the teacher expected that to happen, but it just kind of, that was just the vibe that she always got. The next one was understanding. She felt like teachers didn't care much about home life. Like I said, she had a teacher tell her she was too lazy, and she felt super overlooked because she struggled at school. Her home life was kind of crazy, and the reason she moved to Arizona in the first place was because both her parents actually ended up going to prison, so she had to move in with her grandparents in Arizona, and she was struggling a lot throughout her whole life with that aspect, but she never felt like teachers cared enough to reach out to her or wonder why she wasn't coming to class or why she wasn't turning in assignments. Her younger sister particularly struggled because of their home life. And when their grandma reached out to the teacher and kind of explained what was going on, the teacher was like, "Well, I don't make exceptions." So that's when she kind of realized that she didn't think that teachers would actually care what was going on and care about her and what was happening. The next one being resources. She felt like she didn't ever do well in school, or that because she didn't do well in school, teachers and counselors assumed that she didn't want to go to college. She never got the adequate help on how to apply to college, where to apply, how to get financial aid, all that sort of stuff because her grandparents were immigrants and her parents were in prison and didn't go to jail either. Or they did go to jail, didn't go to school either. Um, and no teacher ever asked her what she wanted to do after school, so she really only thought the only thing she could do was college, but that was off the table because she wasn't smart enough and she didn't know how to apply. Um, so thinking over those things, some things that I think we can do to increase openness in the classroom. I think future teachers, we can be more open in the classroom by encouraging our students to study their own ethnic backgrounds and share with the class. I think this also helps with, European American students realizing that, you can have Swedish culture or Scottish culture, Irish culture and stuff and learn about it and also share that. Um, be less of an instructor and more of a facilitator when it comes to those kind of conversations, because I know for me personally as a white person, I don't know everything about being Hispanic or other ethnic backgrounds. Be sensitive to other languages. If there's a student that does not know English, be sensitive to that. Also maintain a classroom of respect and inclusiveness. No, don't ever tolerate disrespect in your classroom if it's not from you, from other students. When it comes to understanding, I think it's helpful to get to know your students and what problems they're potentially dealing with, especially students that are ethnically different and capability different than us. Sometimes I don't really understand what it's like to not be able to focus in school, but I need to understand what it is like actually and be more understanding of that. Um, Ask students for feedback on how you're doing because I bet a lot of students are really willing to be honest with you, especially if they don't like what you're doing. And take that criticism, in stride and actually use it to improve your classroom. Set up times to check in with students and actively listen to them as well. A lot of students aren't going to outright tell you what's wrong, but if you can kind of get to know more about them, I think you can kind of figure out what's going on and what's actually happening at home, and then being able to modify uh, what you're teaching and what you're kind of expecting of them to that. If they're not having trouble turning in assignments because of a certain struggle at home, you can be more understanding of that. And then when it comes to the resource availability, I'd say the biggest thing, let students know their options. This, in my interview, wasn't the first time that I've heard that people didn't know what other options there were besides college. And when I feel like for me, I knew what there was, but my parents didn't go to college either, and I knew what was out there, but a lot of kids just don't really know where to look. Um, and I say never make a student feel like they can't pursue something. If there's a student, in your class, especially if you're teaching, more high school, that's what I'm going into. So that's kind of where I geared my uh, findings towards. But if you're teaching, older students, and if they, aren't super successful in your class then, but they say they want to go to college, don't say, oh, well, you're too lazy. You can't do that. Be like, okay, well, let's improve some things so that you can be successful in college. That's more of a better way to approach that. I said giving students more autonomy in the classroom helps them feel like they're more in control of their lives. I think a lot of them feel like they can't go to college because they have to stay back and help family and all the sorts of other stuff. Well, actually, you're in control of your own life and you can choose what you want to do. You don't have to stay back just because that's what your family has done all this time. You can break that cycle. And I think being more aware of what students are wanting to accomplish, this kind of goes back to never make a student feel like they can't pursue something. What does a student want to be? Do they just want to, go to cosmetology school or go to a different trade school? Then let them be that. And I'd say also help them develop leadership skills. Those are going to be super helpful in any sort of career that they choose. Um, whether it's a trade, whether it's, just working in an office, or whether it's going to college, those leadership skills are going to help them succeed immensely. And that's my presentation.